This episode is brought to you by America's Christian Credit Union, where your money grows and your values thrive.
Classically in theology, it's been recognized that there are two ways we come to God. One is by faith, and the other is by reason. And they work together. What I found personally is something that goes back to the scholastic theologians, is that it's best in some sense to begin with faith. It's best to begin by opening yourself up to God. And the reason part comes, that is that in my view, God's existence and the characteristics that we ascribe to him with omnipotence, omniscience, omnibenevolence is a scientific theory. I very much believe that's a scientific theory, just like the Big Bang is a scientific theory, just like relativity is a scientific theory. It's a scientific theory in the sense that it's a claim about reality for which we can have evidence. And in my view, God's existence and knowing about God is the most thoroughly proven scientific theory there is. Nothing else comes close. Nothing comes close. And I can go into that in more detail if you want. But my own faith is strongly buttressed by reason. And the proofs for God's existence are very powerful. They're irrefutable, in my view. They've never been refuted in any successful way. I think there are at least 10 really solid proofs for God's existence that don't rely on faith at all. They're just proof. Now, if you add faith to it, and I read the Bible every day, and there's wonderful things in there, you put them together, it's a powerful combination that gives you really certainty, which you can have. The 10 that I recognize, and different people, some people say there are 20 or 25. The 10 that I recognize is the first 5 ways, or Aquinas' 5 ways, and several of them, the most important ones, depend upon a very important concept. Thomas Aquinas' 5 ways depend upon a concept that's actually relatively simple, and it's that you can't go to infinite regress in a series of instrumental causes. And what that means is, if one thing causes another, which causes another, which causes another, this chain of causation that we see all around us in the laws of nature and how things happen, you can't go infinitely back. You have to, at some point, have something that started the whole thing. And what started the whole thing has to be something that is far above and beyond any one of the causes. The example that Aristotle used when he used this same basic principle is, if you see a stick pushing a leaf, and you say, well, how is the stick pushing the leaf? There must be a hand on the stick pushing it. You can't just say the stick is infinitely long and that explains how it pushes the leaf. Something has to get things started. And that's a powerful argument for God's existence, that God is the prime mover, the first change. He's the first cause of things. He's the ground of existence. His existence is what makes every other kind of existence possible. He is the ultimate perfection, and that you can't have a scale of perfection unless you have a top, and he's the top. So his Aquinas' 5 ways depend upon that concept that you can't go to infinite regress in a series of instrumental causes. The way that the 2 ways or actually 3 that I find personally most compelling, besides Aquinas' five ways, the first was St. Augustine's way. And what Augustine said was that universal concepts like love and justice and goodness and things like that clearly exist. There clearly is. Love is something real, and justice is something real, and goodness is something real. But it's not in anything in the physical world. I can't pick up a cup of justice and show you how much justice I have in this cup. But it's real. It's darned real, and we can't evade that. And Aquinas says what's real about it is that they're thoughts in God's mind. The reality of it is that we are thoughts in God's mind. The entire universe is a thought in God's mind. That anytime, if you take universal concepts realistically, if you acknowledge, which you have to if you're realistic, that, yeah, they are real. Well, what's real about them is they're God's thoughts, and we have the privilege of participating in those thoughts. So that's one way of looking at it. The other proof is a proof of Gottfried Leibniz, who was a great scientist and mathematician back in the scientific revolution, who proposed what he called the principle of sufficient reason. And the principle of sufficient reason says that everything that happens in the world has to have a reason that accounts for it. It doesn't mean that you know the reason. Most things we don't know the reasons. But it makes no sense to say something happens for no reason. And if we accept that the universe happens for no reason, we can't do science. If we say that the universe doesn't have any reason for being the way it is, well, then why would we look for reasons anywhere? If you say the universe just exists for no reason, then why can't you say that a particular animal just exists for no reason, so you can do away with Darwinian evolution? Or why wouldn't you say that a particular atom is the way it is for no reason, so you do away with quantum mechanics? Or you can say that the universe, or that space exists like it is for no reason, so we'll do away with the theory of relativity. So you can't do science unless you accept that everything has a reason, some kind of reason. And of course, you have to say, well, then what's the reason for the universe? And that's what all men call God. So if you deny God, you're denying ultimate reasons, and you can't even do science. For me, what I think is the most powerful argument for God's existence is what I call the 10th proof. And the 10th proof is the moral law. And this was Kant's argument. Immanuel Kant made this argument. And when we think about right and wrong, there are two kinds of, you might say, good and bad. There's a good and bad that is objective. That is, it's something that we discover. It's something that's above us, that we all recognize. And there's a good and bad that's subjective, that we happen to feel. For example, I don't like peppermint ice cream. Okay, just doesn't appeal to me. I think it's kind of bad. But other people do. And there's nothing wrong with them liking it and my not liking it. It's just a matter of opinion. I also don't like torturing children. I think torturing children is bad. But torturing children is bad in a way that's different from peppermint ice cream being bad. Torturing children being bad is not just my opinion. Torturing children being bad is immoral. It's part of the moral law. And it's something that we discover, that we all know. And because the moral law is real, and it's real because we all know that certain things are wrong. Killing innocent people is wrong. Torturing people is wrong. Cheating is wrong. Lying is wrong. Stealing is wrong. And it's not just a matter of opinion. Nobody says, I think rape is a terrible thing, but you're entitled to your opinion. If you like rape, that's okay with me. I just think it's wrong. Rape is not like peppermint ice cream. It's not the same thing. So because there are objective moral standards that we can't escape, and believe me, some of the most moralistic people around are atheists and materialists. I mean, they have all kinds of strong moral viewpoints. But if you hold a strong moral viewpoint, you have to acknowledge that there's a mind outside of human minds from which those viewpoints come. The moral law has to come from somewhere. So every time I think, gee, I'll be watching TV and there's something terrible that happens. If you think, for example, about those little girls who drowned in Texas in those flash floods a few weeks ago, that was a horrible thing. But why would I think it was horrible? It wasn't my kids. It wasn't my genes. It doesn't harm me in any Darwinian way. If we were evolved by Darwinian mechanisms, the fact that other people's children would die would mean that our children would have a better chance for success in this world of competition, of spreading your genes. So in a Darwinian world of dog eat dog, of a struggle for existence, that other people's deaths should be good. We should be happy about that because we win. We didn't drown. Our kids didn't drown. But we all feel it's a tragedy. Atheists no less than Christians. Everybody's heartbroken about that. And it's because we recognize that there's an objective standard of good and evil, and that an innocent person dying like that is evil. It's bad. And it breaks our hearts too, which means that we are not Darwinian creatures. We are not evolved strictly by a process of struggle for survival. It means that we recognize that there is an external standard of good and evil. And for there to be an external standard of good and evil, there has to be a mind that holds that standard, and that is the mind of God. So I find the moral law to be inescapable proof of God's existence. Every time I see something that I think is really good, somebody who shows heroism, somebody who shows courage or kindness, every time I see something that's really bad, innocent people dying, people committing crimes, things like that, I think that proves that God exists, because I wouldn't recognize objective moral law unless there was a source for that moral law.